Janissaries, the iron discipline of the Ottoman Empire. 14th century. In the lands of Anatolia and the Balkans, a young state was rising. The Ottoman Beylik, marching from a small frontier principality toward empire, faced a serious problem. It was impossible to govern a rapidly expanding realm with scattered forces. And at this very point, one of the most disciplined military institutions in history was born. Their name, the Janissaries. The Ottoman army initially consisted of Turkmen tribal units and Timar-based cavalry, Sipahis. But this system proved insufficient for centralized authority. During the reign of Sultan Murad I in the 1360s, a radical decision was made. A salaried, permanent, professional infantry army directly tied to the state would be established. The name given to this army, Janissary, meaning new soldier. The Janissaries were not ordinary soldiers. They came from the devşirme system. From among the Christian subjects of the empire, children were selected. Between ages 8 and 18. Healthy, strong, intelligent. These children were legally placed under the status of kul, servant of the Sultan. That meant they entered directly into the service of the Sultan. Separated from their families, their lives changed completely. Devşirme children did not immediately become soldiers. First, they were sent to live with Turkish families in Anatolia. The purpose? To learn Turkish, to adopt Islam, to integrate into Turkish culture. Afterward, they were transferred to the Acemi Ocağı Novice Corps in Istanbul. Here their training focused on physical endurance, mastery of weapons, absolute obedience, discipline, hierarchy. The training could last 5 to 7 years. Graduates were no longer ordinary youths. They were now Janissaries. The most crucial step was the oath ceremony. Janissaries swore loyalty to the Sultan, the state, and the Corps by placing their hands on the Quran. The oath bound them never to betray the Sultan, to uphold the order of the Corps, and never to harm their brothers. Oaths were usually taken collectively, with all novices swearing together. Bektaşi dervishes, spiritual guides of the Corps, participated with prayers and symbols, reinforcing discipline with religious and spiritual bonds. Once sworn in, the youth officially became a member of the Corps, received a salary, and joined the most elite unit of the Ottoman army. The Janissary Corps had a highly systematic organization. Janissary units were called Orta. Each Orta had 200 to 400 soldiers on average. In some periods, numbers exceeded 500. By the 16th century, the number of Ortas reached 196. This meant a massive central army of thousands. Padishah, Sultan, supreme commander of the Ottoman army. The Janissaries were directly under his authority. Duties: declare campaigns, set overall war strategy, appoint the Janissary Aga, approve salaries and organization, give the final word in major disciplinary matters. In battle, the Sultan usually positioned himself at the center of the army, defended by the Janissaries, Janissary Aga. Commander-in-Chief of the Janissary Corps, directly responsible to the Sultan. Duties: manage all Ortas, maintain discipline and order, deploy Janissaries in campaigns, handle promotions and assignments, ensure the security of Istanbul, Sekbanbaşı, commander of hunting and auxiliary infantry units. Duties: lead Sekban units, support Janissary order, coordinate auxiliary forces in war, maintain discipline among recruits and auxiliary troops, Kul Kethudası, administrative and organizational officer. Duties: manage internal order, oversee salaries and records, act as intermediary in disciplinary issues, coordinate between the aga and lower ranks, comparable to a modern staff officer and administrative commander, çorbacı, Orta commander, commander of an Orta. Duties: lead military operations of the unit, oversee training, command in battle, maintain discipline and daily order. Called çorbacı because he was also responsible for food distribution. The cooking cauldron was the symbol of Janissary unity, Odabaşı, sub-commander within an Orta. Duties: train soldiers under his charge, maintain daily order, report to the çorbacı, assign guard and duty rotations, comparable to a modern squad leader, nefer, ordinary Janissary soldier. The lowest rank, but the backbone of the corps. Duties: use weapons, follow battle formations, stand guard, participate in training, obey the chain of command. Armed with firearms and close combat weapons like swords or yatağans, fought with discipline and order. Every rank had clearly defined responsibilities. Discipline. It was the fundamental principle of the Janissaries. The Janissaries' magnificent attire was recognizable even from afar. Burk, headgear. The most striking part of their uniform was the burk on their heads. White felt, a long piece of fabric trailing backward, sometimes adorned with a plume, decorated according to rank. This headgear was not just clothing, it was identity. Clothing, dolama, robe. Kaftan, loose trousers. Wide sash. Their garments provided ease of movement, while also giving a majestic and elegant appearance. As the most disciplined infantry of the Ottoman Empire, the Janissaries wielded the most effective weapons of their time. Their arms reflected both their identity and their power. Yatağan, a curved, single-edged sword. One of the most iconic Janissary weapons, carried both in battle and daily life. Its short, agile design made it deadly in close combat. Kılıç, sword. Long, curved Ottoman sword, used by both cavalry and Janissaries. Sharp and durable, ideal for breaking through enemy lines. Spears and shields, classic infantry weapons. In early periods, Janissaries formed solid defensive lines with spears and shields. Matchlock musket. From the 15th century onward, their greatest advantage was the use of firearms. They maintained constant pressure on the enemy with organized volleys. This gave them superiority over European armies, cannons, and fire support. Janissaries were not artillerymen themselves, but worked in coordination with Ottoman gunners. In sieges, they filled breaches opened by cannons with musket fire and sword assaults. Weapons were not only tools of war, but symbols of discipline and Ottoman might. The yatağan embodied their daily identity, while the musket represented the modern power of their age. The Janissaries formed the core of the Ottoman Kapakulu infantry, a force built on discipline, firepower, and order. They were positioned at the center of the army. They guarded the Sultan's tent. They launched attacks at critical moments. Their formations never broke. The chain of command functioned seamlessly. They were the decisive force that delivered the final blow in battle, fire-lined and staggered formation. Musketeers in the front fired in volleys, while reserves in the rear maintained continuous fire. This ensured constant pressure on the enemy. Close combat assault. After musket fire weakened the enemy, Janissaries advanced with swords in disciplined ranks, breaking enemy lines. Defense and siege formation. In sieges, they concentrated fire at the base of walls and coordinated with artillery. Janissaries lived within the Kapakulu Corps, trained continuously, and received salaries. Their daily life was defined by barracks discipline, religious practice, and service to the state. Barracks routine. They lived collectively in barracks, beginning the day with morning prayer and breakfast. Training, guard duty, and weapon maintenance filled the day. Much of their time was spent on musket drills, close combat practice, and discipline exercises. Food, salary, and comfort. Meals consisted of grains, meat, more common during campaigns, vegetables, and soups. They received regular salaries from the state, called ulufe, paid every 3 months. They also shared in war spoils, making them among the first professional salaried soldiers in history. Over time, some gained economic and social privileges in urban life. In the 15th and 16th centuries, discipline was strict. Their military power was formidable. They struck fear into enemy armies. Janissaries never broke formation in battle. Their white Burq headgear was visible from afar. Their armor was heavy, but their steps were resolute. When the drums began to beat, there was no turning back. Cannons roared, smoke rose. And then, the Janissaries advanced. During the conquest of Constantinople in 1453, their discipline reached its peak. Under Sultan Murad II, the Ottoman army pressed against the city walls. Cannons battered the fortifications, while Janissaries stormed forward in waves. That moment changed the course of history. From the 17th century onward, the system began to deteriorate. The ban on marriage was relaxed. They engaged in trade. Unauthorized recruitment increased. Discipline weakened. They became a political force, staging coups and revolts against the Sultan. Sultan Mahmud II sought to establish a modern army. The Janissaries resisted. The result, in 1826, their barracks were bombarded. This event entered history as the Vak'a-i Hayriye, Auspicious Incident. The Janissary Corps was abolished. A modern army was created in its place. The Janissaries, a symbol of discipline that elevated an empire. The nightmare of Europe. Pioneers of modern professional armies, and at the same time. A historical example of how unchecked power can become a threat. They vanished from the stage of history, but the mark they left is still debated today.